The Sunday sun spilled across my kitchen counter as I slipped into my dress, smoothing the fabric like it was a shield. This wasn't just about looking good. It was about survival. Helen's family lunches always felt like battlegrounds, and today, I told myself, would be different. The sweet scent of vanilla clung to the dessert I'd baked, my peace offering wrapped in sugar. I looked in the mirror, practiced a smile, and whispered, "Today will be different." But deep inside, a knot of unease pulled tighter. Every detail mattered. The pearl earrings weren't just accessories, they were proof I belonged. The mascara, the careful sweep of blush, the dress that hugged my figure in all the right places. Nothing was accidental. Helen never hid her disapproval of me, always dragging Victoria's name into the room like perfume that wouldn't fade. Victoria, the ex, the family's golden girl. I wasn't going to let her ghost dictate how I walked into that house. Today, I would be seen. As I tucked the dessert into its polished carrier, my heart beat with two rhythms at once, determination and fear. What if Helen found a new reason to sneer? What if my efforts dissolved the moment I stepped through her door? Still, a flicker of stubborn fire burned inside me. I believed, no, I needed to believe, that one day the tide would turn. With sweetness in my hands and dignity in my stride, I locked the front door behind me and stepped into a road that felt lined with both promise and peril. The moment I pulled up to Helen's house, my stomach tightened. The place looked exactly as it always did. Perfectly trimmed hedges, roses lined up like soldiers, the front door gleaming as though it had been polished just for this occasion. I carried my dessert like a fragile promise, forcing my smile into place. The closer I got, the louder my heels seemed to echo on the pathway. It wasn't just a house I was walking into, it was a stage. The door swung open, and there was Helen. Her lips stretched into that tight smile that never reached her eyes. "Mariana," she said, like my name itself was an inconvenience. Her gaze swept over me from head to toe, weighing, judging, measuring. I handed her the dessert, hoping the gesture might warm her just a little, but she accepted it as if it were nothing more than a duty fulfilled. "We'll see if they like it," she muttered, already turning away. My chest pinched, but I kept my head high. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of roasted meat and garlic, a feast spread across the long dining table. Relatives murmured, glasses clinked, laughter bounced from one corner of the room to the other. I plastered on my best version of confidence, moving carefully through the crowd. Maybe today, just maybe, they'd notice me for who I was. But before I even had the chance to breathe it in, my smile froze at the sight waiting for me at the table. There she was, Victoria, sitting at the table as if she had never left, her posture relaxed, her smile bright, like she belonged more than I ever did. My blood ran cold, though my face stayed frozen in that polite expression I had practiced. Helen's voice rang out across the room, cheerful now in a way she never was with me. "Look who decided to join us! Isn't it wonderful having Victoria here again?" My throat tightened, but I swallowed it down. Victoria stood, gliding toward me with that effortless grace that always made people forgive her too easily. She kissed my cheek lightly, her perfume invading the space around me, sweet and deliberate. "Mariana," she said softly, as though she were the one doing me a favor by being here. The room's chatter dulled, my pulse thundered, and for a fleeting second I wanted to vanish. But I didn't. I couldn't. I met her eyes and held the smile that now felt like glass cracking. The table filled with laughter, Helen fussing over Victoria, Andrew shifting uncomfortably beside them, not daring to intervene. And me? I sat down, carefully placing my napkin in my lap, my hands trembling beneath the linen. It wasn't just a meal anymore. It was war, unspoken, simmering, and already underway. I told myself to breathe, to endure, But deep inside, a sharper thought whispered, this was only the beginning. From the moment we sat down, it was clear whose spotlight this lunch belonged to. Helen's eyes sparkled like she'd been waiting years for this reunion. Every word out of her mouth dripped with affection for Victoria. The daughter I always wanted, she cooed, her hand resting on Victoria's arm as if she were royalty gracing us with her presence. I sat across from them, my fork idle against my plate, my smile tighter by the second. Victoria played her part flawlessly, humble, sweet, all sugar on the surface, but sharp enough to cut me with every line. Oh, Andrew used to love when I cooked his favorite dish, she said, her eyes flicking to me like a dagger disguised as a glance. I wonder if he still does. The table chuckled, Andrew included, his nervous laugh making my stomach twist. He didn't even look at me. He didn't defend me. He just let her words hang there, glowing like a crown over her head. Inside, I felt myself shrinking, invisible in plain sight. The food on my plate blurred, my appetite gone. Every laugh at her little comments felt like a slap, each affectionate pat on her hand another reminder of how unwelcome I was. Still, I kept my posture straight, my chin lifted. If they wanted a show, I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of watching me crumble. At least, not yet. Helen leaned in closer to Victoria, her laughter spilling out like champagne. You've always had such a special place in this family, she said, her tone dripping with pride. Every sentence felt like a dagger twisted in my chest. She didn't even try to hide the comparison anymore. I could almost hear the unspoken words. Why couldn't Andrew have chosen you instead of her? My hands pressed harder against my napkin to keep them from trembling. Victoria, ever the actress, tilted her head just so, pretending modesty. Oh, Helen, you're too kind. I just love being here. It feels like home. Her words wrapped themselves around the room like ribbons, binding everyone to her charm. She even reached for Andrew's arm lightly, just enough for me to notice, just enough to remind me of the history they shared. He smiled, sheepish and flattered, as though the past were a joke they both understood, and I never would. I kept quiet, chewing slowly, though the food might as well have been ash. The chatter around me blurred, but my ears caught every word aimed to slice at me. I felt like a ghost at my own table, stripped of voice and presence. Yet deep in the hollow ache forming in my chest, something sharp began to stir. Not tears this time, but the faint spark of anger, a quiet promise that I wouldn't let them keep me small forever. Victoria raised her glass, her smile perfectly poised. Too old memories, she said, locking eyes with Andrew as though the toast were meant only for him. The table erupted in clinks of glass and warm laughter. I lifted my own glass, my lips curved into something polite, but inside, I felt the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. My husband smiled at her words, not mine. His silence spoke louder than anything he could have said. When the laughter died down, Helen reached across the table to squeeze Victoria's hand. You'll always be part of this family, she said proudly, while her gaze slid past me like I wasn't even there. That was the moment it hit me. Not just the humiliation of being ignored, but the cruel intention behind it. They weren't simply reminiscing. They were reminding me of my place, or rather, the lack of one. That night, when the house was quiet and Andrew drifted to sleep beside me, I let the tears fall. But they weren't the weak, hopeless kind. They burned, carving paths down my cheeks, reshaping me in the process. By the time the pillow dried, sorrow had transformed into steel. I promised myself that I wouldn't just endure. I would fight back. And the thought of revenge, sharp, deliberate, almost intoxicating, began to take its first breath inside me. The morning after that lunch, I woke with swollen eyes and a hollow chest. Andrew moved around the bedroom, humming softly as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't let me drown in silence at that table, I watched him button his shirt, his hands steady, his face unreadable, and I wondered how long he had been practicing that calm mask. A thought gnawed at me. There's more to this than just a cruel lunch. When the door closed behind him, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. My mind replayed every smile, every glance between him and Victoria, every approving nod from Helen. They weren't coincidences. They were signals, breadcrumbs meant to humiliate me. And once that realization took root, I couldn't ignore it. If there was truth hiding in the shadows, I was going to find it. So I started small. Receipts crumpled in his jacket pocket, late-night phone calls that ended the moment I walked into the room, social media posts that lined up too neatly with his absences. I began to notice the patterns, the little lies stitched together into something larger. The deeper I looked, the clearer the picture became. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was evidence, and it was piling up fast. Late one night, while Andrew showered, I scrolled through his phone with trembling hands. My breath caught when I saw her name. Victoria. Texts threaded like whispers in the dark. Can't wait to see you again. Last night felt just like old times. My stomach flipped, but I kept scrolling, forcing myself to read every word. There it was, confirmation of the betrayal I had already felt in my bones. I snapped screenshots quickly, my fingers steadying as I worked. Proof. Finally, proof. It was strange, almost empowering to hold their secrets in my hands. The words that once cut me now became weapons I could sharpen. I saved them all, creating a quiet archive no one could erase. I wasn't going to confront him yet. No, timing was everything. A few days later, I followed the trail further. Credit card charges at hotels we had never visited together. Receipts tucked into his wallet, bearing dates that matched his so-called late nights at work. I even found pictures online, Victoria smiling in places Andrew claimed he'd never been. Piece by piece, the puzzle fell into place. They thought they were careful, but they had underestimated me. And that was their biggest mistake. Once I had enough proof, I didn't explode. I grew quiet. That kind of silence frightens people more than shouting ever could. I walked through the house as if nothing had changed, cooking dinners, folding laundry, smiling when Andrew cracked his hollow jokes. But inside, I was building something far bigger than confrontation. I wasn't going to yell or beg. I was going to expose them. That's when the idea came. A family lunch. This time at my house. The suggestion rolled off my tongue with practiced ease, sweet enough to disarm suspicion. Helen lit up at the thought, thrilled I was finally making an effort. Andrew agreed without hesitation, never guessing he was walking straight into my carefully laid trap. And Victoria? Naturally, she was invited again. It had to be her. I prepared more than food. I printed the screenshots, the receipts, the photos. Tangible truth they couldn't twist. Each piece slid into a folder I tucked away like a secret ingredient for the perfect recipe. I could almost see the scene unfolding. The table, the laughter, the moment when the mask would drop. They had written me off as invisible. Soon, they'd discover just how visible I could be. The day of the lunch arrived, and my house had never looked more inviting. Candles flickered softly, the smell of roasted herbs drifted through the air, and the table gleamed with polished cutlery. I made sure every detail whispered warmth, because appearances mattered. They needed to walk in feeling comfortable, unsuspecting. My heart beat steady, not from nerves, but from anticipation. This wasn't just a meal, it was the stage I had built for truth. Family trickled in, their voices rising with laughter and casual chatter. Helen arrived, glowing with her usual pride, her arm looped around Victoria as though she were escorting royalty. Andrew followed close, balancing bottles of wine, his smile effortless, unbothered. Watching them slip into my home, into my space, I felt a strange calm wash over me. They had no idea what waited behind the walls of my practiced hospitality. As plates filled and glasses clinked, I moved among them like the perfect hostess, smiling, refilling, listening. Helen praised Victoria's grace, comparing her charm to mine as though it were a competition I had already lost. Victoria, of course, laughed softly, playing innocent while savoring every glance my husband gave her. And me? I kept my smile steady, my voice smooth, my hands calm. Because I knew the real course of the evening hadn't even been served yet. Helen's laughter rang across the table, her hand resting on Victoria's as she declared, "This family just wouldn't be the same without you." The others nodded, some politely, some eagerly, and I felt the heat of humiliation rise in my chest. But instead of breaking, I leaned into it. I let her words fuel me. I reached for my wineglass, stood slowly, and cleared my throat. The chatter softened, eyes turning toward me, expecting small talk or maybe a thank you. "Family," I began, my voice steady, almost warm. "It's supposed to be about love, about loyalty." I let the words hang in the air, thick and deliberate. I saw Andrew shift in his chair, his smile faltering, and Victoria's brows lifted ever so slightly. Helen smirked, certain I was about to embarrass myself with some sentimental speech. They had no idea. My hand tightened around the stem of my glass, and the calm in my chest turned sharp. "And since we're all here together," I continued, letting my eyes travel around the table, "this feels like the perfect moment to celebrate honesty." My pulse thudded, but my face betrayed nothing. I reached for the folder I had tucked beneath the sideboard earlier, sliding it onto the table with a quiet thud. Curiosity flickered in their faces, but only I knew what was about to unfold. My smile grew as I prepared to serve the truth they'd been choking on in secret. I opened the folder slowly, almost ceremoniously, and spread the contents across the table. Screenshots, receipts, photos, each one a stone cast into the silence. Gasps broke out, the sound sharp and raw. I watched Andrew's face drain of color as he reached for the papers with shaking hands. Victoria's lips parted, her composure faltering for the first time all evening. Helen stared, frozen, her pride cracking like glass under pressure. "These aren't rumors," I said evenly, my voice cutting through the chaos. "They're facts. My husband, his ex, and the mother-in-law who welcomed it." My words didn't tremble, and I didn't raise my tone. I didn't need to. The truth was loud enough. Around the table, eyes darted, whispers rose. Cousins, uncles, aunts, they all saw it now. The deception, the betrayal, the ugliness that had been dressed as family tradition. Finally, I looked at Andrew and Victoria, meeting their stunned silence with a smile as sharp as steel. "You can both stay for dessert," I said softly. "It'll be the last one you ever share with this family." My chest felt lighter than it had in years. I didn't just expose them. I had reclaimed myself, right in the space they had tried to erase me from. And as I sat back down, the room remained suspended in the shock I had served. The silence that followed was heavier than any outburst could have been. Helen's cheeks flushed a deep crimson as whispers spread like wildfire across the table. One aunt shook her head, another cousin muttered something under her breath, and I caught the sharp look of disappointment aimed directly at Helen. For once, she wasn't the proud matriarch. She was the woman who had sided with deceit, and now everyone knew it. Andrew tried to speak, his voice cracking, but no words came out. His hands trembled as he shuffled through the photos, proof he couldn't deny, no matter how badly he wanted to. Victoria, still trying to recover, forced a weak smile, but the room had already turned on her. The admiration that once followed her like perfume was gone, replaced with disgust. Even Helen couldn't conjure a defense. The evidence had spoken louder than blood ties. I sat there, calm and steady, my heart finally quiet. I didn't need to yell or scream. The power of truth had done the work for me. For the first time in years, I felt seen not as the outsider or the wife who would never measure up, but as the woman who stood her ground. And as I looked around that table, I realized the war I'd been forced into was finally over. But my liberation? That was only just beginning. In the days that followed, Andrew tried to salvage what was left, but the damage was already done. Relatives whispered about him at gatherings, his once solid reputation reduced to a cautionary tale. At work, word spread faster than he could contain it, his polished charm now clouded by shame. Papers soon followed, divorce papers, and I handed them over without hesitation. Watching him sign his name felt like the final nail in the coffin of a life I no longer wanted. Victoria fared no better. The family that once adored her turned cold overnight. Invitations that used to flow so freely dried up, her messages left unanswered. The seat Helen had once reserved for her remained conspicuously empty at dinners, a silent reminder of betrayal's cost. Her smile, once effortless, became strained, and her presence a burden rather than a gift. She had fought to crawl back into this family, only to be cast out with finality. And Helen. Oh, Helen could no longer hide behind her matriarchal pride. Her choices had left her reputation scarred. People no longer saw her as wise or protective. They saw her as complicit. The respect she once commanded dissolved into pity, into judgment. For years, she had compared me to Victoria, belittled me, made me feel small. But now, it was her turn to shrink under the weight of eyes that no longer admired, but condemned. Months later, I stood in my own kitchen again, but this time the air was light, not heavy. The table was set, not for judgment, but for celebration. My birthday lunch. Friends and family who had chosen me filled the room with laughter and warmth. Candles flickered, glasses clinked, and I felt something I hadn't in years. Peace. No tension, no silent comparisons, no knives hidden in smiles, just belonging. As I moved through the room, serving food, hugging relatives, I caught sight of the one chair left deliberately empty. The seat Helen had once reserved for Victoria sat untouched, a ghost of a battle already won. It wasn't bitterness that kept it vacant. It was closure. A reminder that I had endured their cruelty, exposed their betrayal, and walked out stronger than I ever imagined I could. I raised my glass, smiling at the people who truly mattered. My voice didn't need to be loud to carry weight. His mother invited the ex to the table, I said softly, letting the truth settle in the air. But I was the one who served the final course. And in that moment, surrounded by love I had fought to protect, I knew liberation wasn't just about leaving. It was about reclaiming the seat they once tried to take from me.
About the $3 million, I've made a decision to divide it between my mom and me. This decision came shortly after my father's funeral. Jack, after perusing the inheritance documents without seeking permission, remarked to me, "Kelly, don't be too greedy. Oh, finally I can quit my job. I have to thank that doddering old man." Doddering old man. Are you talking about my dad? I inadvertently blurted out. Disregarding my confusion, Jack and my mother-in-law enthusiastically discussed plans to buy a new car and go shopping. Faced with this unexpected turn of events, I could no longer contain my emotions. I was on the brink of exploding, burdened with household chores, asked for money, and to top it off, they insulted my father. I didn't want to live with Jack and my mother-in-law anymore. Suppressing my anger, I forced a smile and replied, "Sure, feel free to use the money as you and my mother-in-law please. I am Kelly Cohan, a 38-year-old housewife working alongside my husband. My parents were doctors who ran a well-reputed clinic in our hometown. As an only child, I was showered with love. After graduating from the School of Pharmacy, I secured a job at a major pharmaceutical company. Although my parents were disappointed I didn't become a doctor, they respected my decision. 10 years ago, my mother unexpectedly died in an accident, leaving me and my father devastated. During those difficult times, Jack, then my boyfriend, supported me. We met through a mutual friend, and 2 years after my mother's passing, Jack proposed. Jack was an ordinary salaryman in the food and beverage industry. Despite earning significantly more, I believed we could overcome any difficulty and be a happy couple. My father was overjoyed when I told him about our engagement. "I've heard how Jack supported you, Kelly. Thank you so much. Please continue to take care of her," he said. Facing my father, Jack stood straight and promised, "I will make her happy." Standing next to Jack, I was enveloped in feelings of happiness. The following week, we went to Jack's family home to announce our marriage. His mother, with flashy makeup and divorce from Jack's father, evaluated me rudely. "Marriage, huh? You're Jack's choice, are you? Isn't she a bit plain for your choice? And she's older, right? Wouldn't a younger and prettier girl be better for you?" Jack quickly retorted, "Mom, you know N Pharmaceuticals, right? Kelly works there. Her father is a doctor and runs his practice." I expected Jack to praise my character, but instead he emphasized the financial advantages. Hearing this, his mother's expression changed to one of satisfaction. "Oh, Jack, you should have told me such important things earlier. That changes everything. I happily approve of the marriage. Nice to meet you, Kelly." "Thank you." After gaining approval for our marriage from Jack's mother, Jack was overjoyed. However, I couldn't shake off a sense of unease despite things going smoothly and our decision to get married. When we were about to register our marriage, my father, a doctor and real estate investor, gifted me an apartment in a luxury building in New York City. I told Jack, "Dad has given me this apartment as a wedding gift, but it's our new home. Let's live here happily and peacefully together." Jack smiled happily, and thus our married life began. However, after getting married, I realized something unsettling. Jack, who had lived with his parents until then, was almost incapable of doing household chores. He couldn't cook, didn't know how to use a washing machine, and showed no interest in learning. He would leave his garbage scattered around, not bothering to throw it away. While I wanted to diligently share household responsibilities, Jack's careless attitude increased my dissatisfaction. In the first year of marriage, I took on all the household responsibilities despite some complaints, given that we were still in the honeymoon phase. But with the exhaustion from work and struggling to keep up with chores, I reached my limit in our second year, deciding to have a serious talk with Jack about sharing household duties. I bravely expressed my dissatisfaction. To my dismay, Jack responded without gratitude or reflection, saying, "I'm tired from work too. You're much better at chores than I am, right? It's better if you do them since I'm not good at it." Dismissed just like that, Jack hardly helped with the chores, and I continued to bear the brunt of our household responsibilities. But that wasn't the only problem. After marrying Jack, I discovered his mother also had some peculiar ideas. Jack wasn't very interested in seasonal events, so I decided to send a quality scarf and carnations to his mother for Mother's Day. Despite choosing a nice scarf from a department store, his mother called me, sounding displeased. She criticized the scarf, saying it wasn't from a famous brand and was absurd to send such a no-name item. I tried to explain its quality, but she wouldn't listen, insisting she wanted items from a very famous luxury brand. Stunned, I reported this to Jack when he returned home. But instead of empathizing, he said, "What? It's just a scarf. Just do as she said." Jack didn't take my side, and from then on, we started giving her cash as she demanded. Moreover, by our 5th year of marriage, she began visiting our home frequently, always finding reasons to ask for money. Jack, without any complaints, would always smile and give money to his mother. Even though I had a job, Jack's income was limited and small, making our daily life just barely manageable. Desperation led me to dip into our savings to cut living expenses. Despite my frustrations, I knew Jack cherished his mother, and she was an important person to me, having supported me during tough times. She's the mother of someone important to me, and with that thought, I endured. Now, in our 8th year of marriage, I continue to handle all the household chores and keep giving money to my mother-in-law. One day, during this routine, my father, whom I hadn't seen in a while, unexpectedly called me. The story he shared during our rare meeting was shockingly unexpected. He revealed that he was suffering from terminal cancer and treatment was no longer possible. Overwhelmed with shock, tears spilled from my eyes. My father gently stroked my head, just as he did when I was a child, saying, "Kelly, this is fate. Let's accept it quietly." I questioned, "Dad, why, even you?" Thus, my days became a juggling act of work, household duties, and now visits to my father's hospital. While work allowed some flexibility, managing the household was not easy. When I told Jack I would be caring for my father, he showed no reaction or willingness to help. "Well, it's tough with your father's sudden condition. Please do your best," was the only thing Jack said. He visited my father in the hospital only once. I was so preoccupied with my father's care that I had no time to spare for Jack. If I had time to worry about Jack, I wanted to prioritize my father. One day, as my father lay in his hospital bed, he suddenly asked me, "Kelly, how is your marriage with Jack going?" Caught off guard, I found myself thinking about Jack's attitude at home and his mother's behavior. I couldn't answer properly. Seeing my hesitation, my father seemed to understand and spoke to me. "Kelly, you don't have to endure. Think about your happiness. Don't worry, you won't have any hardships after I'm gone." I couldn't hold back my tears and wept, and my father silently and firmly held my hand. 3 months later, the inevitable moment arrived. My father passed away quietly. Engulfed in immense sorrow, I started arranging the funeral. Jack, however, showed no interest in my grief and didn't help with any preparations. Despite this, I was too busy with the funeral arrangements to pay much attention to Jack. Many friends and acquaintances attended my father's funeral, making it a heartfelt farewell. Even the indifferent Jack and his mother attended. The day after the funeral, I received a call from a lawyer about my father's inheritance. I arranged a meeting with the lawyer and listened to the explanation. The information was all new and quite surprising. After deducting taxes like inheritance tax, my father's estate amounted to over $3 million. He had not only earned income as a doctor, but also made real estate investments, leaving behind such a vast fortune, all of it to be inherited by me, his only daughter. Wrapped in surprise and gratitude, yet trembling at the thought of handling such a huge amount of money, I proceeded with the inheritance process. After returning home, I spread out the documents received from the lawyer on my desk. Reading through them, exhaustion overwhelmed me, and I ended up dozing off on the sofa for a short while. When I awoke, I heard the cheerful voices of Jack and his mother from afar. "Huh? Jack and mother too. When did you come?" As I spoke, Jack approached me with a beaming smile, saying, "Yes, Kelly, well done." "Huh? Why? What?" Confused by his sudden excitement, I noticed the documents in Jack's hand. They were the inheritance papers I had received from the lawyer. "Wait, don't just read those without asking." Shocked and angry at Jack for looking through the documents without permission, I raised my voice at him. However, my mother-in-law, unconcerned, happily chimed in, "Wow, an inheritance of $3 million. Isn't that amazing? Now we can live comfortably for the rest of our lives." Confused, I couldn't understand why my mother-in-law suddenly said that. Then Jack turned serious and continued, "By the way, about this $3 million, I decided that it will be split between me and my mom." It was right after my father's funeral. Jack, having looked at the documents related to the inheritance I was supposed to receive without permission, said to me, "Kelly, don't be too greedy." Oh, now I can finally quit my job. I have to thank that doddering old man. Doddering old man? Are you talking about my dad? I accidentally said it out loud. Well, anyway, let's proceed with the inheritance process and get the money into our joint account as soon as possible. Ignoring my confusion over the sudden turn of events, Jack and my mother-in-law were excitedly talking about buying a new car and shopping. At that moment, I couldn't hold back my emotions any longer. I was on the verge of exploding, being burdened with household chores, asked for money, and to top it off, they insulted my father. While holding back my anger, I replied with a forced smile, "Sure, use the money as you and my mother-in-law please. As you wish." Hearing this, my mother-in-law, seemingly satisfied, said cheerfully, "That's the spirit, Kelly. Quick to agree. Now make sure you work hard and earn money. I don't want our savings to decrease, so work hard." I just nodded and pretended to listen to her selfish words. Afterward, Jack and my mother-in-law began living as if they had lost their minds, consuming money lavishly. Jack quickly quit his job, and my mother-in-law practically moved in with us, staying at our house constantly. They would leave in the morning, returning with luxury brand items they had splurged on. The 3-star restaurant we went to today wasn't as great as I expected. Yes, it was a bit underwhelming for us sophisticated ones. They had conversations as if they had become wealthy celebrities while dumping all the housework on me as if I were a maid. Jack seemed to think my father's inheritance would come through immediately. He carelessly withdrew money from our joint account, and my savings of $100,000 dwindled rapidly. When I protested their excessive spending, Jack just laughed it off. Huh? What are you talking about? Isn't $3 million coming soon? Then this kind of spending is no big deal. I warned him, I've already stopped it, but Jack completely ignored me. Then, a month later, Jack and my mother-in-law suddenly left for a trip to Hawaii. I wasn't invited and was left alone at home. After seeing them off, I decided to take action. About a week later, while I was relaxing at home, I heard a loud knock on the door. Wondering what was happening, I glanced at the intercom monitor and saw Jack and my mother-in-law, both dressed in aloha shirts, standing at the front door. What do you want? I asked calmly and coldly. With anger, Jack yelled. What are you even talking about? Why won't the door open? Seeing Jack and my mother-in-law confused as to why the door wouldn't open, I confidently answered through the intercom, well, I changed the locks on the door, so of course it won't open. What? Why? Let's talk over this calmly at the nearby cafe. Please go ahead, I'll join you shortly, I suggested. Jack and his mother, after shouting in front of the entrance, seemingly realized it was futile and soon headed to the cafe. Once I confirmed they had left, I made my way to the cafe. Arriving there, I saw Jack and his mother, who had arrived earlier, waiting in a state of fury. Hey, what's this about? Did you change the locks? Hand over the new keys right now. There's no need for me to give you the new keys. You both need to leave that house, I calmly told Jack and his mother. Facing a visibly angry Jack, I presented a piece of paper. It was a divorce petition I had already filled out. Divorce? You're serious about divorcing me? His mother was equally shocked and bewildered. Kelly, why has it come to this? I spoke quietly to the two who were panicking and flustered. By the way, you've been spending lavishly every day. Are you sure your finances are okay? What? Money? Of course it's fine. Jack retorted vehemently, spitting as he spoke. Your father's inheritance is coming, right? There should still be over $50,000 in our joint account. Look, I'll show you right now. Here it is. Saying this, Jack took out his smartphone and opened the banking app to check the account. At that moment, his expression changed abruptly. What? What's this? Why is the money gone? It was there just the other day. Hearing Jack's words, his mother also hurriedly looked at her phone, her face showing confusion. I revealed the truth to them as they were panicking, not understanding the situation. Of course it's gone. I'm divorcing you, so I moved that $50,000 to my account as part of the property division. What? What do you mean? Jack's face turned to anger for a moment, but then he smirked as if remembering something. Fine, I'll divorce you, then transfer the inheritance you got from your dad right away. After all, property acquired during the marriage is split half and half in a divorce, right? Well, you might be misunderstanding something, I replied. Why? Didn't you know? The inheritance I received, even though it was during our marriage, doesn't count for property division. There was a moment of silence between us. Then Jack and his mother's expressions changed drastically. Perhaps they truly believed they would receive part of my inheritance. I was just astonished and could only sigh in disbelief. No, that can't be true. That's impossible. Her face turned red with a mix of denial and anger. Please check for yourself, I said mockingly. Jack started frantically searching on his smartphone. It says here, property inherited by one spouse from a parent is considered separate property. Therefore, it's not subject to division and can't be split between the spouses. What? Seriously? His mother too looked at the screen in shock. Then Jack approached me, pleading desperately, Kelly, please don't divorce me. I have no savings and no job. How am I supposed to live if you divorce me? Faced with Jack's wailing, I spoke to him clearly and firmly. What are you talking about? Take responsibility for your actions. I will never forget how you both treated me. I'm divorcing you. I'll go to court if I have to." Intimidated by my fierce demeanor, which they had never seen before, Jack and his mother shrunk back in fear, whimpering softly. Leaving the two of them dejected, I walked out of the cafe. Later on, Jack and I were able to go through the divorce proceedings without any issues. The $50,000 I had moved from our joint account was recognized as part of the marital property division. Eventually, I managed to get Jack and his mother out of my house. Jack, having already squandered the money from the property division, found himself penniless. Furthermore, he was overwhelmed with bills from the overseas trip and other expenses he had paid for with his credit card, quickly sinking into debt. Jack and his mother had to take on even more debt to make these payments, and they now live in a rundown apartment, working tirelessly every day to pay off their debts. The stark contrast to their former lavish lifestyle has been a huge shock for them. On the other hand, I sold the condo I used to share with Jack. I then moved into the apartment that used to belong to my father. I continue to work as before, but with the inheritance I received from my father, I am living a comfortable life financially. With gratitude to my late father in my heart, I want to start anew and cherish my life ahead. I aim to protect my happiness and spend my days peacefully. Since Michael and Sarah returned for a hometown childbirth, please leave, my mother-in-law stated in a chilly voice. Her eldest son and his wife are due in 3 days. Me, leave? I asked, confused and stunned. Yes. We don't need another mother figure anymore. You've been redundant for a while now. Michael and his family will be living here, so make sure you're out by tomorrow, she continued. I knew I was never truly accepted into the family since the day I got married. Treated as a wife, never did I imagine they would tell me to leave. You barren failure. You were allowed to experience raising a child. Be grateful. We have no obligation to support you anymore. It seems like Simon is tired of you too. What's Simon to do? I gulped down my saliva. If it's not a conspiracy between my mother-in-law and Michael, then I don't need to stand on ceremony with my husband anymore. Foolish to drive me out, but it was my mother-in-law who ignited this. What happens to this house now is none of my concern. May they face the reality they have ignored squarely. Personally, I'm Anna Thompson, 45 years old, living with my husband and mother-in-law in a popular area close to the station. The access to the city center is superb. When house hunting, my picky husband, recently promoted to a managerial position, insisted on a spacious apartment. The rent was steep, but the space and rooms made it worth the stretch. My husband Simon, 8 years my senior, a divorce that I met through a friend's introduction. Comforted by the enveloping kindness unique to an older man, we decided to get married after 2 years of dating. Even when I told him about my infertility due to past illness, his affection did not waver. Likewise, my feelings remained unchanged when I learned of the circumstances he carried. My husband had a son named Michael from his previous marriage. I'm truly sorry to ask you, who have never been married, to live with my parents and son. I won't make you suffer. I'll ensure you're happy. That was the promise he made to me. To prevent me from feeling suffocated, my husband suggested moving to a spacious apartment where I could have my own room. Michael, turning 10 this year, won't need much care with my mom around. You don't have to push yourself. After his divorce, my husband got help with childcare from his parents at their home. A few years later, Simon's father passed away in an accident, and it seems his mother took over as Michael's caretaker. From the first meeting, Michael wouldn't even make eye contact with me. I thought it might be his shy nature, approaching a difficult age, so I didn't worry. As long as they accepted me as a member of the household, I was content. My mother-in-law was a quiet and refined person. When I visited to formally introduce myself after our engagement, she treated me with such politeness that I thought we would get along fine living together. I'll continue to prepare the meals as I have been. Simon comes home late, so it's okay if we eat at different times, right? Anna, I'll leave the cleaning and laundry to you, all right? Let's work well together. After getting married, I switched from a full-time employee at the pharmacy to a part-timer due to the division of household chores. I started work a bit later in the morning, so I wouldn't get home until nearly 8 p.m. Dinner was always ready when I arrived, making me feel good about living together. My mother-in-law and Michael usually had dinner before I got home, so I was always eating alone. Even after getting married, I sometimes felt a sense of, is this it? But I came to accept that this was our family style. From the beginning, my mother-in-law never really liked me and didn't consider me part of the family at all. Michael, the school's activity day is before summer, right? When is it? We're all going to see you sometime. After getting married, I tried to break the ice with Michael, who still hadn't warmed up to me. No, I mean, as Michael faltered, my mother-in-law interjected. We'll go there, just Simon and me. Anna, you don't need to worry about it. I misunderstood her words, thinking she was just being considerate. I can get the day off work. Let's all go together. You don't need that. You're Simon's wife, and Mike's family has always been just Simon and me. I was quite shocked. When I brought it up with my husband at night, he said, Mom's been clinging to Michael. She probably thinks you're trying to take him away. I'll talk to her. Eventually, I began to join as a mother at the activity day, but Michael and I rarely spent any time together outside of school events. Sometimes I could tell Michael wanted to say something, but my mother-in-law always cut in between us. I later found out that she had been bad-mouthing me to Michael. Anna said she could be happy with Simon if Michael weren't around. She's a terrible person. Dad must be deceived by her too. If a boy in his formative years hears such things, it wouldn't be strange for him to distrust me. It was a sickening story. But at that time, I hadn't imagined that my mother-in-law could do such a thing. After graduating high school, Michael immediately moved in with his girlfriend and left home. As soon as he started college, a year after he started working, he married her without a ceremony. Once Michael moved out, my mother-in-law surprisingly stopped doing housework altogether. Instead, it seemed that picking on me had become her sole entertainment. She stopped cooking, which she used to do before, and now just sits at the dining table waiting for me to come home. Without a moment to sit down, I would stand in the kitchen and prepare dinner. You're really inefficient. At this rate, it'll take you all night. I was never good at cooking, partly because I had always relied on my mother-in-law to prepare the meals. Whenever I did manage to cook, she would taste each dish and invariably complain, "This tastes awful." I'm sorry. I'm trying my best. You're astonishingly tone-deaf when it comes to flavors, Anna. It's a good thing Michael never had to eat this. How terrible. If she thought so, she might as well make it herself. But it seemed she just wanted to complain to me, not just about the meals, but she started nitpicking everything from the cleaning I never used to do to the laundry. Why are there so many wrinkles on the laundry? You have to vacuum every nook and cranny. You really can't do anything right. Didn't your family teach you anything? With that, my mother-in-law sighed while looking at me. Being belittled even about my family, I clenched my fists in frustration. I don't know how you won over Simon, but I can't see much charm in you as a woman. And she always concluded with the same line. If you hadn't come, Michael would have never left. I understood that there was a gaping hole in her heart since Michael had left. Maybe it was what they call empty nest syndrome. If taking it out on me made her feel better, that's what I told myself to endure it. But her bullying took on new energy after a certain event. That event was the pregnancy announcement for Michael's wife, Sarah. The joy my mother-in-law exhibited was unlike anything I had seen before. It's Michael's baby. It's bound to be adorable. He'll be my first grandchild. Watching the two of them rejoice, I was happy too, but my mother-in-law's excitement was beyond normal. Probably because Michael asked her, "Grandma, can Sarah have our baby at your place?" Sarah's family home is an hour away by plane, and since they have no one else to rely on here, they turn to us for help. Of course, my mother-in-law wouldn't dream of turning down Michael's request. The phone calls from Michael started to become frequent, and her excitement went through the roof. The next day after getting the news, she started preparing enthusiastically, from cleaning out Michael's room to preparing the bedding and making a list of baby items. It was like she had great-grandchild fever. Naturally, I had to get involved too when I returned from work. "Anna, I vacuumed Michael's room, so you need to wipe the floors and the windows and please wax them too. This weekend we're going to the department store to look at baby cribs." Cleaning and waxing at night was tough, especially after a long day at work. If I even thought about cutting corners, I'd be told to do it over again. Moreover, my mother-in-law started asking for money, and before I knew it, the house was overflowing with baby stuff. "Anna, I need you to withdraw some money tomorrow. There are things I want to get ready for the baby." Again, isn't it wasteful to prepare so much when Sarah and Michael haven't even arrived? Shouldn't we wait and choose together with them? I had wanted to meet my mother-in-law's requests, but I was troubled by the relentless spending. How can you be so cold? It's Simon's grandchild. Oh, that's right. You're not related to Michael by blood. You don't care, do you? That's not true. Please don't say that. I just thought Sarah might want to pick things out herself. When do you want to choose things for your own child? Perhaps because I was making a valid point, my mother-in-law glared at me sharply. I immediately thought I had gone too far, but it was too late. Without a word, my mother-in-law went back to her room, looking upset. I did reflect on it, but I was also shocked to be spoken about in such a way regarding my infertility. The next morning, my mother-in-law didn't come out of her room, perhaps still angry. Simon had a 3-day business trip starting that day, so he just called out, "I'm leaving," through her door. Please don't throw cold water on Mom's great-grandchild fever. She hasn't been the same since Michael left. You were worried too, right? I was, but if we spend all our money like this, we'll have nothing left when Michael and Sarah arrive, right? Simon's face immediately turned sour. Are you saying my earnings are too low? That's not what I'm saying at all. Simon just said, fine, and left with a look of dissatisfaction. Discussions about money always end up like this. Since I'm the one managing our finances, I can't help but think ahead. Of course, there's a reason for that. We've been married for 13 years. Simon has provided me with a very comfortable life. Your part-time income is for you to enjoy. Simon had always told me, so I saved everything beyond what I needed for myself. Even though it's in my name, I consider it our shared property. But then Simon's company's performance declined, and over the last 5 years, his salary has dropped to 2/3 of what it was when we first got married. While there's uncertainty whether his company will last until his retirement, he doesn't seem to consider changing jobs. For appearances in front of my mother-in-law, my husband couldn't give up his title as a department head. Now I'm the one paying the rent, and he covers the living expenses. We've kept this from my mother-in-law to save my husband's face. That day, I left work a bit early to apologize to my mother-in-law. When I got home, she was already sitting at the dining table waiting for me. I'm sorry about yesterday. I may have gone too far, I admitted, but my mother-in-law remained silent. Instead, she blindsided me with unexpected news. Michael and Sarah are returning for a hometown childbirth. Please vacate, my mother-in-law declared in a chilly tone. The eldest son and his wife were set to arrive in 3 days. Perplexed and stunned, I asked, I have to leave. She affirmed, yes. We don't need another mother figure anymore. You've been redundant for a while. Michael and his family will be living here. Make sure you're out by tomorrow. The realization hit me hard. I had never truly been accepted into the family since the day I got married. I had always been treated as an outsider. The news of Michael's return for the birth made it clear. You barren failure, my mother-in-law continued. You were allowed to experience raising a child. Be grateful. We have no obligation to support you anymore. It seems like Simon is tired of you too. Maybe he's getting along well with a new girlfriend by now. Shocked, I gulped down my saliva, contemplating the possibility of my relationship with my husband growing distant. Could this be a trap I fell into? Thinking my husband would never. I remembered that up until a year ago, he never had overnight business trips. All right, I'll be out tonight, I said, grabbing my bag and leaving the house to walk aimlessly. I needed to calm my severely shaken heart. Worried about my husband, I tried calling his cell phone. Despite my mother-in-law's words, I still wanted to talk to him, but he didn't answer no matter how many times I rang. I dialed his office, only to learn that he had taken a couple of days off. My mother-in-law's words began to ring more true. Could he really be on a trip with another woman? Dark thoughts crowded my mind, and I found myself overwhelmed with emotion, tears streaming down my face. Staggering along, I noticed the tavern behind the station, a place we used to frequent when we first moved here. It's still here, I thought as I entered. Welcome. The tavern owner's expression clouded briefly upon seeing me, then he nodded in recognition. Hey, long time no see. It's been about 8 years. I used to come here a lot with my husband, I said. Yes, it's been a while. I remember you, he replied. I couldn't help but smile, feeling a sense of relief. Can I get a beer and a mixed plate of grilled chicken, please? I asked. The owner, a man of few words as always, nodded. As I sipped the cold beer and savored the grilled chicken, I took out my cell phone, and the screensaver lit up with a photo of us when Michael turned 18, looking sharp in the slim suit we had picked up together. I wished for us to be closer as a family, The beer washed down my throat, taking the day's stress with it. Could I really move out tomorrow? Contemplating the next steps, I searched for moving companies, finding one for the job the next day. I also looked up junk buyers and saved 2 companies in my favorites. Changing the screensaver on my phone seemed to clear my head completely. The beer and grilled chicken tasted exceptional. I decided to think about everything once I got home. Walking away from the tavern, I was called from behind. A young waitress from the tavern was running towards me. "Excuse me, are you Mrs. Thompson? I noticed the screensaver on your phone," she said, confirming my identity. She dropped a bombshell. My husband was having an affair with one of their employees. We exchanged contact information, and she promised to keep me informed. My mother-in-law's words appeared to be true. Instead of sadness, a fierce anger welled up within me. It was time to confront this head-on. Booking an appointment with a moving company, I resolved to move out that day. If it wasn't a conspiracy and my mother-in-law and Michael were truly involved, then I no longer needed to honor my husband. Returning home, I packed my belongings until midnight without hesitation. The moving company arrived on time, and I made it clear that I was leaving as requested. They took everything I had bought, erasing every trace of my presence. My mother-in-law panicked, but I was resolute. "I'm taking everything I bought. You can start a completely new life tomorrow," I declared, suppressing a laugh. Ignoring her protests, I proceeded to have everything taken out. My mother-in-law complained loudly to the movers, but there was nothing she could do. The only items left in the house were piles of baby gear and her old dresser from before the marriage. "Well then, I bid you farewell. There should be no trace of me left, so enjoy your life with Simon, Michael, and his family," I declared, leaving her sitting there stunned. Placing the keys on the table, I exited the room. The movers held onto my things for a while, and I decided to stay with a single colleague for some time. Feeling a sense of completion, I slept soundly that night. A week later, I finally heard from my husband. I wondered if he was scheming with that other woman. While my husband was dragging his feet, I received a call from the young woman at the tavern. "Got a good shot, so I'll send it to you." In the photo, my husband was chatting up a not-so-young woman at the tavern. Maybe out of a sense of justice, the young woman must have followed them after they closed. There was also a photo attached of the 2 entering a hotel. Even in such times, the cheating continues, I thought, and any last bit of affection I had for my husband dissipated. I asked for the woman's name and had her address looked up. The next day, armed with all the evidence of the affair, my husband called. "Anna, where are you? Michael and his family are here too. Aren't you going to come home soon?" "No, I'm not coming back. Your mom told me to leave. I'm done here. Michael and his family are going to live with you now, right?" I knew it. Michael and his family were out of money and looking to crash at our place. I heard that after graduating from a vocational school, they'd been hopping from job to job, and now they're working part-time. "No, I want you back, Anna. I went to the pharmacy, and they said you're off for a bit." "Got played to crash, yeah. I'm fine, so don't worry about me. Your mom and Michael didn't like me, right? I reckon they're happy to have the place to themselves without me around." My snide comment left my husband speechless. He knew his mother and Michael never accepted me as family, but pretended not to see it. "Well, all right, I have something to say, so I'll come back there once," my husband replied with a relieved please in his voice. Days later, I returned to the house for the first time in a long while. Some new pieces of furniture and appliances were inside. When Michael and Sarah saw me, they just nodded from their seats on the sofa without getting up. As I took a seat, my mother-in-law glared at me with a scary look on her face. The atmosphere was tense, and just as I thought to get things done and leave quickly, Michael spoke up. "What are you doing here? You took everything from the house. What kind of monster does that? Dad's been supporting you, and you've had it easy." I sighed. "I took everything because I paid for it. I wanted to remove all traces of me, just as you wanted, right?" "That's crazy, right? There's no way you could afford all that just working part-time at the pharmacy," my husband said. When I glanced at him, he started talking as if he'd resigned himself. "We've been getting by on what Anna and I both make for a little while now. Then the stuff you took should be both yours." Instead of my speechless husband, I decided to speak up. "Simon's company has been doing poorly and his salary plummeted. That's why, for the past 5 years, I've been covering what's missing. But that wasn't enough, and now I'm the one paying our rent. My mother-in-law looked at my husband with surprise. I'm not just a part-timer. I'm a part-time pharmacist and the pay is quite good. I'm making more than Simon now. At my words, my husband awkwardly looked away. My mother-in-law's eyes were frantically shifting between my husband and me. From now on, Michael, you'll be paying the rent. You're going to live here, right? After all the help your grandma's given, it's time for you to take care of her. Michael looked at me with a shocked expression when I dropped the news. Suddenly, rent? How much is it? He asked. It's $5,600. Good luck. Since it seems my role as a mother is over, I don't have an obligation to take care of you anymore. Pull yourself together. You're going to be a father soon. Michael murmured with a shake of his head, That's impossible. It was Sarah who raised her voice upon hearing this. Wait, $5,600? Weren't we supposed to live here for free? Covering rent and living expenses? I almost burst out laughing. Don't worry, Sarah. You can move to a cheaper place. Simon still makes a decent salary. Hearing this, Sarah's face relaxed a bit. Oh, since I'll be leaving you, Simon, life might still get tough with your mistress, huh? At that, Sarah finally broke down in tears. It was my husband who panicked. What? What are you talking about? Sarah replied, Oh, your mother told me about the new woman. I guess it's time to end my role as a wife too. My husband must think there's no evidence. Indeed, it hasn't even been 10 days since I left the house. Wouldn't that hurt Mary if she heard you? Well, I'll get in touch about that later. At the mention of Mary's name, my husband jolted, realizing that I knew everything. He held his head and sighed. This is not the atmosphere to write a divorce paper. Well then, I'll be going now. Please talk to me further through a lawyer. Neither my husband Simon nor Michael said anything more, staying silent as I grabbed my bag and stood up. My mother-in-law stood up simultaneously, slamming her hands on the table. She yelled with a voice too strong for an elderly woman. What the hell? It's all your fault. Our home is in shambles. I was instantly irritated. It was you who told me to leave. It was you who said Simon had another woman and you interfered with my relationship with Michael. Everything was you. I felt a surge of heat in my chest. I regretted not being more assertive with my relationship with Michael, not holding back because of my mother-in-law. Michael has nothing to do with this. It's time for you to step up, Simon. He's going through a hard time. You should support him as his wife. Take responsibility as a family member. What is she even talking about? If she hadn't called Michael back home, if she hadn't hinted at Simon's affair, I would still happily support Simon and this home. I had always believed in and supported Simon. Where are you, Michael? Why are you still up there? It's all her fault. My mother-in-law's lips tightened into a line, and she was trembling. I slipped past the silent mother-in-law and quickly left the room. Afterward, Simon agreed to the divorce rather easily. It seems my determination was strong, and he couldn't counter the evidence of the affair. Shortly after, it seemed like they started the process of moving out of the apartment. In the end, Michael and Sarah went back to their apartment and never lived with the mother-in-law. Simon seems to be considering remarriage, but Mary was furious over the alimony and his request for her to live with his mother. I've heard they're considering whether to place my mother-in-law in a care facility. After all the love she poured into her son and grandson, it's somewhat sad to think they're ready to abandon her now. Perhaps she served her purpose too. If my mother-in-law had said nothing back then, and it had just been a simple trip home for childbirth, maybe we would still be living together. After the divorce, Michael sent me an apology letter. He wrote about how, as a child, he really wanted to be more spoiled, how he couldn't talk to me because his grandmother disliked it, and how happy he was when I attended school events. Maybe I should have reached out more. Perhaps then we could have built a different relationship. Even though our relationship has ended, I quietly pray for Michael's happiness in life. I've returned to work as a pharmacist and quickly rented an apartment close to my workplace. I don't feel good about keeping the furniture and appliances I took with me, so I had them all picked up and disposed of by a junk removal service. Life without my mother-in-law's harassment is peaceful and comfortable. For a while, I want to live for my own happiness, not someone else's.